You're with the inspector, walking through the house, seeing some things that, hey, really don't need to be fixed. Like you could have an inspector really be picky about a house. And if you're not there, you could see the home inspection and it could overwhelm you. Like there could be a crack in the wall and you could think, oh my gosh, was that something major? That's why it's really important that your agent, that I'm there at the home inspection or at the tail end of the inspection to make sure I go over the crucial things with the inspector so we know what really needs to be taken care of, or we can ask to be taken care of, or should not be taken care of. And if you're there with the inspector, you can say, oh, okay, well, this makes sense, or, oh, that's what he was talking about, or, oh, we should ask for this to be fixed. Now, remember, you can ask for up to $1,000 in repairs. These sellers are not obligated to fix things, right? They could say, hey, you know what? The house tested high for radon. We're not going to fix it. And the buyer can say, okay, well, sayonara, I do not want this house. Now, radon remediation is a tube that runs from typically the basement. It looks like a white plumbing pipe, and it goes out through the roof of the house and just pumps radon out of the house. And it's very efficient. It's about $1,000. If termites show up, that could be anywhere from $300 to $600 to treat. And also, if you find termites or wood-boring beetles, they eat about a foot of wood a year. Then you might be obligated as the seller to fix this as well. Now, you can say this to yourself too. It wouldn't be very smart for a seller not to take care of these things if they want to sell their house, right? Unless the house is in high demand and the buyer, say that you got a ton of money and you're like, hey, I don't mind fixing some of these things and paying for it myself. I want this house. It just really depends on the situation. Now, as I mentioned, there is a well inspection where the well is inspected to make sure that it meets EPA requirements for human consumption, where it's analyzed for the presence and of total and fecal coliform bacteria, things of that nature. Your septic, to make sure the septic is functioning as well. And when you go to sell a house, you've got a septic disclosure document that you download. Septics are usually pumped every 5 years, and you have to think about this too: is a septic large enough to handle the house? Because sometimes people will add on to their house, but they don't increase the size of their septic. So it might be a 3-bedroom, but the septic's only good for a 2-bedroom. Now, back to the termite inspection. These are very common. The most common inspections you see in the city are your home inspection, radon, wood, and the inflow and infiltration inspection, which is free from the city of Roanoke. This is if you have city water, and this is where the someone from the city comes in from the Western Virginia Water Authority to determine if any storm or groundwater runoff flows into the authority's sanitary sewer system, just to make sure that the water is running correctly, and that's good for 5 years. Now, last but not least, additional structures or systems to be inspected. If you see something weird in the house, and one of the most common things that could be weird is a crack or moisture, is you can ask the additional inspections to have the corner of the basement inspected. And when the inspector comes into a house, they are not perfect. Remember, most of them are not plumbers. They're not contractors, and they're not HVAC techs. But what you can do when the removal of contingencies comes back is you can request that a certified HVAC tech inspect the system to make sure it is working well. Why would this happen? Well, sometimes the inspectors, they have these temperature guns where they can see how cool the air is that is coming out of the system in the house. They also have moisture reading guns, kind of like taking your temperature, that they can hold up to the wall and see the moisture levels. And then you can ask for a certified contractor to inspect this. This is to make sure every nook and cranny of the house looks good, so you're in good condition to purchase the house. Now, as mentioned, the seller should fix these things. It says in the contract, radon, well, septic, wood infestation, influent infiltration inspection reports. The seller shall correct all defects or perform in accordance with paragraph 17. All repairs made pursuant by the provisions of this paragraph will be performed by a Virginia licensed contractor, licensed pest control company, or certifying radon mitigator unless otherwise agreed upon in writing. Like, for instance, I had a house where the seller said, hey, is it okay if I fix, some of the wood boards? And, I'm a carpenter. Can I fix some of the wood boards that are loose in the garage? And my buyer had to sign off on that being okay. If not, a licensed contractor has to take care of this. And it's important to have a home inspection. I think that I've explained it well, some of the reasons, because you could have foundation issues. You could have a basement that floods, and it just really depends on the age and condition of the house. Typically, it's $1,000 in repairs, but if the house looks rough, your agent, that being me, might ask for $2,000 in repairs, $3,000 in repair. Is the seller obligated to take care of this? Kind of, sort of, maybe. They could come back with their agent and say, hey, you know what? We won't do $3,000, but we'll do $1,500. Let's talk about these repairs. So after the home inspection takes place and the radon, the inspector is going to come up with a report, maybe 5-6 pages, where he breaks down the house with pictures, some have videos, and makes suggestions. This is called your inspection report. And, most inspectors don't give it to you until you pay for it. That's where, the buyer's paying for it. So remember, this is one of the pieces of, this is one of the pieces of money. That's what I would say, or something you have to include into your finances is paying for the home inspection, or your budget rather, when it comes to purchasing a house. So when you get this inspection report back, you get together with me, your agent, and we discuss the inspections. And like I said, being there is such a big deal, because you can say, hey, I was there and this really isn't a big deal, but this is a big deal. And you come up with a list of things you ask the seller to repair. Now, remember, they're not necessarily obligated to fix everything. You've got the plumbing, you've got the roof leaking, structural, and then the third thing, which is mechanical. But you could ask them for different things. You could say, hey, could you fix that loose door, outside of the garage? Could you also fix the vinyl inside of the kitchen that was coming up? You can ask for things. Remember, cosmetic, they're not obligated to fix. And they can come back and say, yes, some sellers are really cool. They'll say, hey, no problem, we'll take care of this. And also, too, when the seller gets back this list, this request from you, their agent will have a licensed contractor estimate how much this will cost to see if it fits in within that $1,000 repairs that you requested, $2,000 or more, depending, like I said, on the house. And if it goes over, some will take care of it and some won't. So these are all of the moving pieces, not necessarily in order to a home inspection, but it's really, really interesting. I can tell you this, that I was the buyer's agent for my personal home, and I was not there for the home inspection. I had to be at work, and I really wanted to be there. And the inspection scared the living crap out of me. I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. Now, what was kind of interesting is that the selling agent gave me a credit. I requested a bunch of things. I said, I want this fixed, this fixed, this fixed. And he said, hey, you know what? Why don't I just cut you a check at closing? You can give it to your contractor and take care of all those repairs after you move in. And this is an option that could take place as well, so you can get into the house a little bit quicker. Now, here are a couple situations where the home inspection worked out okay. I had a really nice house in Salem that I listed. This house was in the 300s range, and the clients had taken really good care of it. It was a newer build, so it wasn't that old, maybe 5 or 6 years old. And I was the listing agent. The buyer's agent came through, and one of their family members happened to be a contractor. And he said, hey, I think we're going to waive the home inspection, but let me get him, to walk through with my clients. It's their, I guess their dad, and see what he thinks about the house. So, within a few days, he walked through the house and he said, hey man, this thing looks great. It's, it's not that old. They've taken really good care of it. Tell them we don't need a home inspection. So there was no home inspection, which really made the offer more attractive. The process goes a little bit more quickly because you're not going over the repairs or, negotiating that part of the contract through the buying process of the house, selling process. That's one scenario. Also, too, you'll see it in investment properties, sold as is, bring your own contractor, HVAC guy, check it out, no home inspection. No repairs made. You also see listings too, Zillow, Realtor.com, and the MLS, where it says home sold as is, no repairs. Does this mean the house is in bad condition? No, but it means use your due diligence. Home inspection is welcome usually, but we're not going to make any repairs to it. So you're on your own. Now, I've had a couple of clients where this is kind of a weird scenario where there was a home inspection and the buyer backed out and the house went back on the market. My client liked the house and said to the listing agent, hey, can I go ahead and use your previous use that inspection and we'll go off this? And they said, yeah, sure. So we also had, a certified handyman / almost contractor walk through the house. Things looked okay. Well, there's a couple issues with this if you don't use your own inspector. One, you can't sue them, right? Secondly, this inspector missed a wire that ran from the road to the house where it needed to be repaired. Well, there's nothing my client could do because he didn't use the inspector. And he couldn't go back and say, hey man, you missed this, or hold him accountable. Another time where this backfired on a client of mine was that he walked through the house. He knows homes pretty well, or thought he did, and said, you know what? I don't want a home inspection. It looks great down here. Finished basement. Well, 3 or 4 days after he moved in, water began to flow through the basement. I didn't know. I suggest the home inspection. I'm going to guide you and make a suggestion for you. It's up to you to make a decision, right? I'll tell you if the house looks a little rough, or what could come up on a home inspection, because I've looked at hundreds of properties in Roanoke, Richmond, Raleigh, Charlotte. I know what could possibly come up, but there's some things that don't come up. So that's why I suggest that you have a home inspection. Protect yourself. Protect, one of your biggest purchases, if not the biggest purchase of your life. Because the last thing you want to do is move in and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened, because it will stress you out and you won't feel good about it. So hopefully that's educated you on having a home inspection. And now you'll be able to, weigh the pros and cons of, should I have it? I'm telling you, you should have it. It's definitely worth the money. I'm the Frazier Hughes Experienced Realtor. This is the Roanoke Real Estate Podcast here in Roanoke, Virginia. You can find me on Facebook. I was going to say on Facebook, Frazier Hughes. It is the Frazier Hughes Experienced Realtor. That's just type it in, or type in Frazier Hughes on Google. The first 2 pages will explode. Hughes or lose on Instagram. And then check out my writings in the Roanoke Valley Business Front, where I write the Realtor column. I think you'll find it pretty interesting. And I really thank you for listening today. And thanks for thinking about me when it comes to selling and finding your next home here in the Valley. If you want to be on the podcast, feel free to message me anytime, or call or text me, 540-314. Yep, that's my personal cell phone, 540-314-5583. Have a positive day, and don't forget, the experience is real.
Want to be on the Roanoke Real Estate Podcast? Call Frazier now or text 540-314-5583. Also contact Frazier to sell or find your next home. And he is always fresh on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Stay positive, Star City and Hughes. Don't lose it.